friends, people I never knew, people I never thought about associating with. I don't know what it is. Talk to me. Check it out. 85 acres with a mansion on my land. Full jacuzzis and my neighbors can't stand the way I live. This old so fast. Ain't got your ladies and primetime is all that.
Whoa, Dion. It's not that kind of primetime.
Yeah, man, it's primetime fantasy football on Next Level Radio.
Well, alright. Yeah.
Welcome to another live edition, or if you're podcasting, a podcasted edition of Primetime Fantasy Football here on Next Level Radio. I am Adam Gorey, joined by Steve Richards, calling me remotely from the Poconos.
Yeah, how's everybody doing? I'm excited to be on. Excited for a little bit of redemption. I think I called Bill O'Brien Bryant all last week and then forgot Java Best's name. So I'm here to prove that I know something about football this week. And I'm determined.
Here to make a name for yourself.
Yeah.
And just to forewarn anybody listening live, when I go and do the podcast, so if you're podcasting and I might have been able to take it out, there might be a slight delay because I think, Steve, you're using your phone as a hotspot. Is that right?
Yep, the phone is the source of the internet. The issue is there. We're not sure how good it is, so there might be a couple second delay on the talking.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah.
So let's see. This week we are doing the NFC North. We're spotlighting the NFC North. We got Sleeper Spotlight. We got Over Under. And we got Dig It or Ditch It, that's kind of for the whole league. And then we have a new thing we're going to start doing probably each week or every other, where Steve and I are each going to do a mock draft during the week, and we'll break it down for you. So before we get started, let me just mention there are still spots available on our fantasy football league. That's going to draft like a couple days before the season starts. I forget exactly when the draft is set for, but it's like 8:30 at night, when you shouldn't be doing anything. Send your name, email your name to primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com and we'll get you signed up. Also, you can send us your questions, suggestions, what you want to hear us talk about. I know normally we talk about standard or PPR a lot. If you want to hear us talk about Dynasty or Keeper or all the other different kinds, let us know, and we will. All right, so let's get right into it. Let's do I think we were going to do Dig It or Ditch It first before we get into the NFC North. So let's let Robot Bill kick it off.
Prime Time Fantasy Football presents Dig It or Ditch It.
Can you dig it?
All right, and on Dig It or Ditch It this week, we have, it looks like six to go over. So the first one, the New York Jets, supposedly, this according to, I believe it's ESPN's New York Jets blog guy, they're thinking of doing a running back by committee. Steve, you digging that or you ditching that?
Well, I'm certainly digging the idea that they will do a running back by committee. I would ditch that as far as fantasy value goes for New York Jet running backs. Talked a little bit about this previous week with as kind of the Chris Ivory versus Chris Johnson and then everybody else debate.
Right.
So we certainly talked about how Chris Ivory I have higher, at least myself, than Chris Johnson just because I don't trust Chris Johnson. But I think this NFL or ESPN New York preview has Chris Johnson as a projected starter with Ivory as his backup. So it's an interesting, but I guess that's the idea of the running back by committee. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. But I'm definitely digging the fact that they probably will use running back by committee this year.
Yeah, I'm also going to dig that. I think that is the way they're going to go. You and I both are not very high on Mr. CJ2K. So we could easily see him having to split carries with somebody, most likely Chris Ivory, like you said. So yeah, we are definitely both.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
Yeah, they've proven in the past that they just stick with the guy that's hot as well. That Rex Ryan just goes with the guy that's good on that day. So it might not take long for Chris Ivory to be the starter and Chris Johnson have a day spent on the bench. So just can't trust them all that much with this whole running back by committee scenario.
Exactly. All right, next one up, we got Dwayne Bowe, supposedly, this according to one of the Kansas City, I think it's it's USA Today. Bowe apparently looking, that was an old one I was looking at. Apparently he looked great in off-season workouts. That was the one I had seen the other day. The other one that's up there now is that he's, apparently being looked at for his November arrest for marijuana. But, he apparently was also looking good in, off-season workouts. So are you digging or ditching that?
Yeah, I like Dwayne Bowe a lot. I think he's a really good player, and I would definitely dig him as the Kansas City go-to type guy. This, I don't know if this marijuana thing's going to, I saw the same thing you did. I don't know if it's going to turn into a suspension, which is definitely something to look out for. But as far as Dwayne Bowe as a player goes on the field, there's very few receivers that are as good as him when he's on and healthy.
Yeah, he kind of disappointed a little bit last year. Everybody thought maybe in the pass-happy read offense he would flourish, and he really didn't do all that well. So, I'm actually going to ditch this one. I think this might just be, camp OTA hype. That, we were kind of thinking he was going to show us something really good last year and kind of disappointed. So, I have yet to see, him used correctly in Andy Reid's offense. And I agree, he's a fantastic player. He played in 15 out of the 16 games last year and only had 57 receptions for 670 yards. I mean, he did have 5 touchdowns, but, until I see him used correctly, he definitely has the potential, but, in the offense, he could be getting more comfortable, but for right now, I'm gonna have to ditch it. Next up, another OTA guy, Eli Manning, apparently, re-energized in this new offense after that horrendous year last year.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and ditch Eli Manning. I actually heard a point the other day while I was watching ESPN. I was watching one of the NFL shows that they run year-round on ESPN, and they were talking about how Eli performs well when he has a great defense, and I certainly don't see the Giants having that great of a defense this year. So
yeah,
he kind of pitches a game manager type, and I think Eli Manning's better than that, but I don't know that. I think he does need to have a good defense to play well, and I'm not sure that he's going to have that this year. So I'm going to ditch that one.
Yeah, I'm also actually going to ditch that one as well. Same reasons. Moving along, we'll go through these quickly because I know we got a lot on tap for today. Eli Manning, we just did that. CJ Spiller, I feel like we've heard this before, but according to the Bills, he's going to get at least 20 touches per game. You digging that or you ditching that?
Yeah, I'm not sure he can hold up. I didn't read into the article, self-proclamation, but I don't know if that included kickoffs and punts and things like that, return yards, but I don't see him holding up an entire season with 20 touches per game. There's a reason they brought in Bryce Brown, and there's a reason that they used Fred Jackson so much last year. So he just hasn't proven that he's sturdy to me. So until he proves that, I'm not going to buy 20 touches per game, so I'm going to ditch the article.
Yeah, and I'm going to agree with you there. I'm ditching that. And I gotta give a little nod to a friend of ours, Ryan Johnson, who I had mentioned the CJ Spiller thing to him, 20 touches per game, and he had CJ Spiller on his team last year, and found in an article last year that he had remembered them apparently saying they were going to give him the ball until he throws up, and we all know how that went last year. He did not have a great year. So, yeah, I'm gonna ditch that as well.
Yeah.
We also have Malcom Floyd, the apparently MVP of OTAs and minicamp.
Yeah, I actually found this one looking around. I kind of hope, this is more of a hope than a than a thought, that I would like to dig this, just because I like Malcom Floyd as a player himself. So I'm going to dig it, and being a positive guy about it, just because I think Malcom Floyd has a lot of potential, and he did play really well last year before he got hurt. He got hurt early in the year, but he showed flashes early in that year. So I'm going to go ahead and believe in that and dig this article.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to dig it as well, simply because, like you said, he had, he has shown flashes. He has potentially. Again, he only played in 2 games last year. But, I mean, the only thing that scares me about him, he's 32 years old, and obviously Keenan Allen, the rookie, had a great season last year. But maybe with Keenan Allen having that season, Malcom Floyd can kind of shine a little bit and take off some of that coverage. Because, I mean, he's a bigger guy, He's a great target, and I mean, at 32, he's probably not going to be the fastest guy, but you know what? I think he is gonna get some openings with Keenan Allen taking up a lot of coverage. I mean, he's 6'5", 225, so I mean, he's a big dude. He should get the ball pretty often. I'm thinking maybe a red zone target as well.
Exactly, solid red zone target. As soon as you said 6'5", that's the first thing that came into my mind. So we're kind of on the same page on that one.
Great minds, you know what they say. Apparently,
Yeah, sure.
unless it comes to Dwayne Bowe. Last one for you, Gio Bernard, early and often. Apparently, they're going to go to Gio Bernard. They want to emulate the 49ers and Seahawks. Steve, you digging that or you ditching that?
Yeah, I'm definitely digging this one. I like Gio Bernard a lot, actually. They drafted Stephen Hill, I believe it was, the running back out of LSU. And so they're just going to look to run it a lot. And when you say emulate 49ers and Seahawks, obviously we mean teams that like to run the ball and teams that are going to run the ball. So Gio Bernard is definitely going to get his chances, and he's proven that when given chances that he can definitely take the ball and run with it. Jeremy Hill is the running back that they drafted, not Stephen Hill. Now I'm thinking about it. And so I definitely believe in Gio Bernard and the system change with Marvin Lewis and the Bengals. So I would definitely dig this article.
Yeah, I'm gonna dig that as well. He didn't get all the carries last year, but he still had a good year. And I think Ben Jarvis Green Ellis actually may even get cut from the team. They're talking about him being on the bubble. So I don't think he's going to have that problem. I think he's going to get the majority of carries. I really like Gio Bernard this year. I mean, like I said, he had a good rookie year, even though they didn't give him all the carries. But definitely one of my, I don't want to say sleepers because I think he's getting some recognition, but I think he's getting overshadowed a little bit by some of the other guys, and I think he could end up being a steal in some drafts, depending on if people forget him or not.
Yeah, definitely. And I mentioned Jeremy Hill. He's probably only even going to be a change of pace guy, or like a short yardage type situation. So Gio Bernard is definitely going to be the featured back. So he's definitely somebody to watch out for, like you said, to have a big uptick in production.
Yeah, I mean, looking at his stats last year, he averaged 4.1 yards per carry, still managed 5 touchdowns. He had 56 receptions, which I think is almost as much as Dwayne Bowe.
Yeah, it actually is.
So, I mean, that, splitting carries, at least, I don't remember towards the end of the season if he started to see more time over Ben Jarvis Green Ellis, but at least in the beginning of the year, they're splitting a lot. So if he becomes the guy, I really like him. And yeah, that was only one less reception than Dwayne Bowe last year. So there's that.
Yeah, there you go.
So that wraps it up for Dig It or Ditch It. So let's move on here.
Primetime Fantasy Football's Sleeper Spotlight.
All right, on the Sleeper Spotlight this week, we will again be doing the NFC North, which is the Packers, Bears, Vikings, and Lions. Steve, you want to start us off with the Sleeper Spotlight?
Yeah, absolutely. The guy right at the top of the list is actually somebody that you had on your list, but I also would have put him on my list. So we'll go right to the top and go with Jay Cutler, the quarterback for Chicago. His average draft position is at 105, which is certainly something that you can look for. And he could definitely have more production than that, I would think.
Yeah, and I want to point out, and I kind of realized this when we were doing our mock drafts, if you look at 105 and you divide it by 10, if it's a 10-team league, you're like, oh, that's the 10th round, 10.5. But actually, it's the 11th round because, 1 through 10 is technically 0. So I want to apologize for the past 2 weeks that we've been averaging these guys out to around lower than what they've actually been going. So he's actually going in a 10-team league. He's going in the 11th round. And I see him as a starting quarterback.
Exactly. That's what I was going to bring up as well, is that in the quarterback's realm, he's not going as a quarterback number 1. And I would certainly consider Jay Cutler quarterback number 1 going into this year. I've talked about how much you like him and certainly the weapons that he has around him. He should have better production than the guys that are going higher than him, I would think.
Right, and I think quarterbacks are actually going a little later this year. Kind of like the trend, you kind of saw it last year a little bit. I think it's carrying on to this year, and quarterbacks in general, other than the top 3 or 4, are going a little later. But I mean, looking at his stats last year in standard leagues, he only scored, the last 2 weeks of the season, week 16 and 17, he scored under 18 points. But other than that, he only scored 18 points twice the rest of the season. The rest, he had 18 in the week 1, 22. I mean, he scored over 20 in 4 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks. And some of those later weeks, after he came back from that injury, he had 13, 21, 13, and 16. So, I mean, you might be able to, credit some of that unproductive fantasy point stuff to, just not being 100% healthy. So him being 100% healthy, having another year with the same, coordinator and stuff, which he has even said that does not happen often for him. I think this might be only second or third time he's had the same coordinator.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and he certainly, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so consistency is good for him. And that's, again, going in the 11th round in a 10-team league, I think is an absolute steal.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, I mean, I don't know how much it was last year, but the job is 100% his at this point. McCown's on to Tampa Bay. So,
yeah.
I mean, he doesn't have to look over his shoulder at all. It's just his job, and he can go ahead and sling it like he loves to do.
Exactly. This next one, let's see, I'll go to another one that I had added. I think I added him. Joik Bell. His ADP right now is at 92, so that's in the 10th round. This is a guy who, he put up a few really big games last year. He had 3 games total last year where he had more than 20 rushing attempts. And when that was the case, he had 18 points, 21 points, and 19 points. So, I mean, and that's in a non-PPR league, by the way. So, I really like him. I really think Reggie Bush is an accident waiting to happen. And I actually just don't like Reggie Bush in general. I would kind of avoid him, if possible, because he's going to get hurt, number one. And number two, I mean, I kind of like the way Joik Bell plays a little better. I mean, the guy had 53 total receptions as well. So if you are in a PPR league, him going that late is even better.
Absolutely. I think he might even go a little bit higher in a PPR league, as with people realizing that Detroit loves to throw to their running backs. But like you essentially what I heard you say is if you give the guy a chance, then he's going to produce for you. So I think that giving him a chance is what Detroit should do, like you said with Reggie Bush. And even if they don't, then Reggie Bush is going to get hurt. I'm just echoing everything that you're saying, essentially. So I like Joik Bell a lot, just like you do. So I definitely agree with your sentiments here on Joik Bell being a sleeper. And I would take him maybe even before Reggie Bush, and I don't believe that that's happening right now. So
no, I don't think so. Yeah.
If you're going to go Detroit running back, I think let somebody else take Reggie Bush. Yeah, let somebody else take Reggie Bush, and then go ahead and take Joik Bell later and get more production.
Yeah, and by the way, those games where he did have the 20-plus carries, he scored a touchdown in each one of them. So they're definitely giving the backs some goal line touches. Next up, Steve, I think this was one of yours, Golden Tate.
Yeah, he's not necessarily going too late at 87.
Ninth round.
The reason that I have him, there is just because I could see him having better production. I put a bunch of tight ends on this list as well that we'll talk about in a little bit that I just think they'll have better production, and Golden Tate falls into the same category.
Right.
Obviously, he played all year essentially. Had a bunch of productive games. I would consider receivers with 10 points as a solid game. He went over 10 points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times last year, and had a couple of games where he approached 20 points. So. And this year, it's just going to go up and up, where he is the definite number 2, and definitely not someone that will be seeing the main focus of coverage with Calvin Johnson on the other side. So
yeah, that's
the Calvin Johnson effect. But
that's the thing. I mean, he's going from a team that is more known for its running, and Russell Wilson can throw the ball, but he's not usually putting up Matthew Stafford numbers, and Detroit loves to throw the ball. So I do really like Golden Tate. And we'll get to him in the over-under, but I can tell you right now, I'll probably take the over. Next up is Eric Ebron, the rookie out of, where's he from? I don't remember.
I don't quite remember either. I should. We can find it out real quick, though.
Anyway, he has my birthday, so, can't be that bad of a guy. By the way, North Carolina is where he played. He's going 129, so that's about the 13th round. So him going in the 13th round, I could see him as a potential Jordan Cameron type this year, going really late, but actually giving you some good production throughout the year. And if maybe you have like Gronkowski and you're worried about him getting injured, Ebron would be a great guy to have as a backup, and he might end up being even some trade bait down the road.
Yeah, I love Ebron. You said it with Jordan Cameron. This guy's, he's a giant human. He's gotten comparisons to Vernon Davis. So if he realizes even a little bit of that potential, then he could certainly be a steal in where he's going at 129. And you're always looking for, tight end. You're always looking for some sort of production, and he's definitely a guy with huge potential, which is exactly what this sleeper spotlight segment is for. So
yeah,
he's definitely somebody that I would keep an eye on and go ahead and pick up.
You want to finish us off with the mass amount of tight ends on this list?
Yeah. Another one that's not necessarily going late, but I just believe in is Kyle Rudolph. He's going 82 in Yahoo leagues right now. And we can talk about the stats and things like that, but there's a lot of news that's coming out with him and how he's doing so well in the off season, and he's really working toward training, and he's finally got a coordinator that's going to cater to the tight end. Yeah, dropped weight and all that stuff. And then I also, part of it is because I look at the Yahoo and I see that Greg Olsen and Dennis Pitta are going 2 rounds ahead of him. So I just think that he would be more productive than Dennis Pitta and Greg Olsen. So I would see that's what justifies him as a sleeper to me, because I think that he's a better player than those two guys are. So
yeah,
that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, exactly. And I honestly don't know if they know what they're doing quarterback wise this year, but if Teddy Bridgewater does get in there this season, I think that'll help him as well.
Mm-hmm. I would agree, absolutely. And then the next guy, the next tight end guy is Martellus Bennett, who is also obviously another tight end, but he's just another guy that's going to thrive off of having receivers like Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. I think Martellus Bennett is certainly the third target after that, and he's a nice red zone target for Jay Cutler at 6'6", 265. So I believe that Cutler can stick around for the entire year, and he won't have to worry about injuries and things like that. And Martellus Bennett can continue to play with him. And right now, Bennett is going 114, and again, I believe that there's tight ends that he's just better than that are going before him. And again, it's Greg Olsen and Pitta. Even though they're going even before Rudolph, I would still take Martellus Bennett before those guys, just because I believe in the red zone targets and the athletic ability of Martellus Bennett in playing another season and learning the league and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And then I have here in giant bold red letters, avoid Jermichael Finley, not on a team. His ADP is 119, and it should probably be somewhere in the 200s. It doesn't say somewhere in the 200s, but
yeah, should probably somewhere in the undrafted.
Yeah,
he's going ahead of
he's going before
guys
Ebron.
That are actually playing. Exactly, he's going before Ebron, going before Antonio Gates, going before Charles Clay.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's going before all sorts of guys that are actually playing, and I think maybe some of the problem is that Yahoo at least has him listed as a member of the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Which he is not. So
yeah,
just a disclaimer, and we might as well throw him in the NFC North because he's listed on the NFC North team, but he's not on a team. So go ahead and avoid him at all costs.
Yeah, don't draft him. That's like he's not a sleeper at all. He's just don't touch him. All right, well, let's take a really quick break, and then we'll come back and we will do over under, and we'll answer one of the email questions we had, And then we'll also quick break down our mock drafts. We'll go through over-under a lot quicker this week than we have been in previous weeks. So we'll be right back. Stick around. Much more to come.
You're listening to Primetime Fantasy Football on Next Level Radio.
The showcast.
Next on the list is The Nut Job. Voices are Will Arnett and Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson is enough just to get me to rent it.
Squirrels, right?
Yeah, this is the squirrel. I would hope so with a movie called The Nut Job. Otherwise, it's a complete porn title that I'm just reviewing completely wrong.
Liam Neeson in it?
Well, you never know.
Sundays on Next Level Radio.
Hi, it's Selena Jade. I play Shadow and Arrow, and you're listening to Next Level Radio.
This is Robot Bill, producer for Prime Time Fantasy Football. Make sure you go to nextlevelradioonline.com for other shows and celebrity interviews, and subscribe to both Next Level Radio and Prime Time Fantasy Football on iTunes. Now, back to this week's Prime Time Fantasy Football.
And we're back here on Primetime Fantasy Football after that very quick break. Again, if you're listening live, feel free to leave a message in the chat room. If you're listening on the podcast, subscribe to Next Level Radio and Primetime Fantasy Football on iTunes. Also, head to nextlevelradioonline.com for other shows and celebrity guest interviews. Send us your email questions, or if you want to join our Fantasy Football League, you can send us your info. Primetime at nextlevelradioonline.com. So let's move on. Next up, we have Over Under.
It's time for Over Under.
All right, and by the way, thank you again to Robot Bill for all your help that you do on the show. We do appreciate it. First up on Over Under, let's start with the quarterbacks. Well, we're not doing Cutler because, number one, we already talked about him in Sleeper Spotlight, and he only played 11 games. The Vikings is a mess. Aaron Rodgers, we'll go to Aaron Rodgers, even though he only played 9 games. He had 167 points, which averages out to 18.6 per game. Over 2,500 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions, and 120 rushing yards. So what do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to put obviously the season totals behind, although 17 touchdowns in 9 games is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to look at the 18.6 per game, and I'm still going to go over. To me, Aaron Rodgers is always threatening to be the best quarterback in the league, and the best quarterback in the league is always looking to score more than 20 points a game. It's high expectations, but it's definitely something that I would expect, and I don't see Aaron Rodgers slowing down anytime soon. So yeah, I'm going over.
I agree. I'm going over too. I really love Aaron Rodgers as a fantasy player, and like you said, I mean he can put up the most points every week. It doesn't matter who he's playing. He's one of those top guys. Rodgers, Breeze, and Manning. I mean, you might put Tom Brady up there still. I know he's been kind of dropping off a lot of people's lists, and even Cam Newton has been dropping a little bit. But yeah, I'll go over as well. The other quarterback then in the division, Matthew Stafford, 293 points last year, which is 18.37 per game. That's a full season's worth. Over 4,600 passing yards. Like we said, they like to fling it around a lot. 29 touchdowns, 19 picks. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns with 69 rushing yards.
Yeah, like you said, the Lions like to throw it, so he's always a candidate to approach 300 points in a season. And we talked about 2 of his receivers in Sleeper Spotlight, and Golden Tate and Eric Ebron, and they are both new additions. So I like Stafford. I think he can do better than 29-19 as far as touchdown interception ratio. So I'm either a bull or a bear. I'm not sure which one it is. I forget already from our week 2 show, but I'm positive on
I think it's bull
on AFC North quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's bull.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm.
Did you say AFC North?
No, we're in the AFC North.
Okay, I thought you said AFC North for a second. I just misheard you. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page here. Yeah, I'm taking the over as well. Like you said, I mean he has all the weapons he had last year and more. I mean, Ebron, Tate, and you know what's funny? He was doing this with guys like Titus Young not on the field because he keeps getting in trouble. So now adding Golden Tate and now adding Ebron, definitely I could easily see him approaching 300 yards as long as he stays healthy. I know he's had health issues in the past, so he did get a chance to play the full 16. So I really don't want to see him, miss any games this year. So I'm going to take the over. Let's move on to wide receivers. A gentleman named Calvin Johnson, also known as Megatron, played in 14 games, 219 points in those 14 games, averaging 15.66 per game in a standard format, which is just insane. PPR format, he averaged 21.66 per game. He had 84 catches, just under 1,500 yards. He averaged over 100 yards per game, just throwing it out there. 12 touchdowns, almost a touchdown average per game, and 1 fumble lost. I mean, this guy, just when you think he scores, or, just when you think he's at the top of his game, he keeps going higher. I mean, I got to take the over, I guess. I can't give this guy an under. I just can't.
You just can't do it. It's just not in a intelligent DNA.
I would not be able to sleep tonight if I gave him under, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the fun part about doing divisions at a time, and I'm just realizing this just now as we go over it, is with the NFC North, you have arguably the best quarterback in the league in the division, the best wide receiver in the league in the division, and the best running back in the league in the division. So we'll get to the running backs later, but you can't, like you said, you can't go under on Calvin Johnson. You just can't, because he's going to have to prove that he's going to have an off year for him to have an off year. So there's no even if I said under, I wouldn't want you to draft him any higher or lower because of it. So I'm just going to go over because I love to watch this guy run and catch and play. So I'm just going to go over and hope he has a ridiculous year because he's fun to watch.
Yeah, if they told me, hey, you have to, when you draft players, like if it was a draft specific to the division, so you had to draft all your players from one division, you can make an argument that the NFC North is where you would go with that. Because I can't think.
It really is.
Yeah, I can't think off the top of my head of a division where, like, not taking them all from the same team, where you have fantasy producers on every team. The Vikings, other than Peterson, they don't really have too much. I mean, you could make an argument for Cordero Patterson, but other than him, maybe not much. But the other three are just monsters on the fantasy game. So going on to the two Bears receivers, Brandon Marshall, first off, we'll start with 199 points, which is 12.4 per game. PPR 299, which is 18.7 per game. 100 receptions, 1,295 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 2 two-point conversions. I'm inclined to take the over on that as well with a healthy Jay Cutler. He loves Brandon Marshall. Anytime he was on the field, he was looking for Brandon Marshall first.
Yep, they were boys back in Denver, and they've been boys in Chicago ever since he's been there, and they've been together. So there's no reason to think that he wouldn't be able to do it again. It's just fun looking at the PPR where you go 199.5 in standard and 299.5 in PPR. So
yeah,
anytime you get a 100 catch guy, that's it's always a positive. So he's definitely an over guy as well. With, like you said, Cutler being there for the entire season. It's actually pretty impressive that he got 100 catches with Cutler not being there for the whole season. So Brandon Marshall, just like Calvin Johnson's a beast, and you got to go over before you can prove it.
Yeah, and his counterpart, Alshon Jeffrey, with a huge season last year. Just nobody really saw it coming. 194.6 points, which is 12.1 per game. He only had 5 less points than Brandon Marshall. 283 in the PPR, which is 17.7 per game. 89 receptions, 1,420 yards, 7 touchdowns. He even had 105 rushing yards, so they're using him there as well, which is where he kind of made up some of the points. Brandon Marshall had 5 more touchdowns. Alshon Jeffrey was able to add some rushing yards in there. He also had a 2-pointer and a fumble lost. He's an interesting one to me, so I'm kind of interested to see if you're going over under on him.
Yeah, I actually really like Alshon Jeffrey a lot. It was hard to believe that he's such a young guy still, and he's got more to learn, more to grow. I think somehow, I don't know how it's possible, but for some reason I think that both of the Bears receivers can be 100-catch guys. And I actually have a bit of a rationale we'll go over when we get to the running backs, but I think that they can both be 100-reception guys, and that just gives Alshon Jeffrey more yards and more chances for touchdowns. So I think this Bears offense in general is really good, and I think that they're due to be one of the top 5, top 3 offenses in the league. So that means that all of their guys have potential to score a bunch. And Alshon Jeffrey's not excluded from that, so I'm going to go over on him as well.
Yeah, you know what? If that was his rookie year last year, if he had just come out of college and put up something like that, maybe I'd go under. But it's his third year. He's comfortable with the offense. He's comfortable with Jay Cutler. I'm on your line of thinking. I'm going to go over. I do think they can both be 100 catch guys, and the fact that they are using him some for running means that he's going to add extra points right there. So if you add more receptions and he keeps rushing the ball, he's bound to get a rushing touchdown possibly at some point. And like John says in our message board, he thinks he's going to be a top 3 to 5 receiver. He's young, fast, and a big playmaker. I'm not sure. I got to look at the whole list. We're going to do our rankings in a few weeks. I'm not sure I can give him 3 to 5, but he's definitely easily top 10. But I could see him as being a wide receiver 1 on a team somewhere.
Yeah, he's a beast.
Next up, you have, let's go to the Packers. You have Jordy Nelson, only 179 points last year, which is 11.2 per game. PPR league, he made 264, which is 16 a game, 85 catches, 1,300 yards, and 8 touchdowns. Kind of a disappointing season last year for him. Everybody was worried about him being healthy. So I got to go over because, with Rodgers only playing 9 games last year, just having him back should get everybody on that team more points.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm going to echo your point exactly, that 9 games for Aaron Rodgers, if that turns into 10, 14, 16, and that just boosts Jordy. Jordy Nelson is the number 1 on that team, and he just thrives when Aaron Rodgers is in there. Nobody knows better than me who had him last year on a team. So I would agree that Aaron Rodgers isn't injury prone, but he was hurt last year, so he should be back to himself this year, and that means more points for Jordy Nelson. Yeah.
Next up, you have Golden Tate, who we kind of touched on a little bit earlier on the Lions. 116 points, 7.3 per game, so not huge per game. PPR 180, 11.3 per game, 64 catches, 898 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 31 rushing yards. I'm like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier, I'm taking the over on him. Just having Megatron on his team, Ebron, having all the throws he's going to get, all the targets he should get, having Stafford throwing it to him. Not that, nothing against Russell Wilson, but Stafford can sling it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, they just throw it more than Seattle does, and just by sheer numbers, you should have more opportunities and more points.
Yeah. And then you have, this is another intriguing one to me, Cordero Patterson. It is Cordero, right, and not Cordarrelle? I hear people say Cordero a lot.
I'm not sure it's Cordero. That sounds too much like Corduroy. I don't think he'd want to be.
I think it's Cordero, but I do still hear people say Cordero. So 104.7 last year, 6.5 per game. PPR, you got 149, which is 9.3 per game. 45 catches, 469 yards, 4 touchdowns, where he got a lot of his points. 158 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns, and even 2 return touchdowns, which we count in some of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Despite all of those impressive touchdown numbers, I'm going to go under on Cordero Patterson, which is maybe due for a disappointing year, considering he only starts at 6.5 points per game. But there's a little bit of a flux with the quarterback situation. Return TDs are tough, so you'd have 2 TDs to make up over there. And then I'm not sure how much they're going to use him to run when they have Adrian Peterson, but I just don't see him being as impactful as he was last year.
Okay. You know what? It's tough for me because I want to say, I would love to say over, but like you mentioned, and like John even mentioned just now on the message board, the quarterback situation just kind of kills it for you. I mean, if they had a steady guy that he could get a rapport with, get into a groove, I could go over, but I still think it might take him another year or two to get over that number, so I'm going to go under as well. We are going to skip Greg Jennings, Jared Boykin, and Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb only played 6 games, so obviously over. Greg Jennings is getting older, and Jared Boykin, I guess, has dropped down to now the third receiver on the team. So for the sake of time, we're going to move on to running backs. This is an interesting one for me, because I'm curious to see what you're going to say. Eddie Lacy on the Packers. He played 15 games, 211 points, 14 per game, which is a very good average for a rookie. PPR, he added another 35 points to to make for 246, which is 16 per game. He had 1,178 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, which is a ton of touchdowns for a first-year guy. 1 fumble loss, 35 catches, and 257 receiving yards.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go under on this. I don't know, call it the Aaron Rodgers effect again, but I don't know. They say they always try to run it more, and now they think they finally found a running back in Eddie Lacy, but 11 touchdowns is a big old number to me. And then I'm not sure how much they're going to keep throwing it to him. So I'm going to go under. He's a really good running back. I mean, there's no reason to avoid him or anything like that, but I'm still going to go under the 14.1 points per game that he put up last year.
Yeah, I'm on board with you, man. I'm going to take the under, and like you said, it's mostly because of Rodgers. And they like him there. They like to give him the ball, and I like him as a running back. But when you have Aaron Rodgers, you're not going to quite like him as much. When Aaron Rodgers isn't in the game, you have no problem handing the ball off to Eddie Lacy a ton. So, I'm gonna take the under as well. Next up, you got Matt Forte on the Bears. 268 points, 16.7 per game. PPR, he added another 74 points, which is absolutely crazy. 342 PPR points, 21 per game. He had over 1,300 rushing yards, 9 touchdowns, a 2-point conversion, 2 fumbles lost, 74 catches, like I said, 594 receiving yards to go with it, and 3 receiving touchdowns. It's hard to go over on that because that's a lot of points for him. Like you said, the Bears are kind of turning into this fantasy productive team where everybody's putting up points. I don't know if I want to go over, though. I think I actually might have to go a little bit lower. Not much. I'm not going to draft him any lower than he's going or anything like that. I don't think he's overrated by any stretch, but I just think it's hard to match those numbers from last year. So I'm going to go a little bit under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well. And you said it with the 74 catches. That's a big old number. Forte was really good last year, especially if you had him in a PPR, but even if you didn't, the 74 catches turned into 600 receiving yards, which is also a really good number that you get out of a running back. In the other years, he's averaged around 50 catches a year, so he was really targeted a lot. I don't know if we're going to turn that into a trend or not, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it. So maybe not even just on the receiving yards alone, it's going to have to go down to me. And I think, like I said, Alshon Jeffrey, I think some of those catches go to Alshon Jeffrey from Matt Forte. So the reason that I went over on Alshon is a little bit of the reason why I'm going to go under on Forte here.
Yeah, and his receiving yards and rushing yards were both career highs last year. He's 28, so he's not hitting that 30-year-old mark yet. He's projected to be, at least according to Yahoo's, he's projected to be the fifth running back. I actually might even put him in at number 4. They have Eddie Lacy ahead of him. I might go Forte before Lacy. Actually, I'm almost positive I would. I still think, like we said, he's a great running back. And like John said, even in the chat room, he's top 5. Like I said, I go 4. But 268 is a lot of points. Next, you have Reggie Bush, played in 14 games last year. Feels like he missed more, but he only missed 2 full games. He played in a lot of half a games. 189 points, 13.5 per game, 243 for PPR, 17.4 per game PPR wise. 1,000. He still managed 1,000 over 1,000 rushing yards, 6 touchdowns, 4 lost fumbles, 54 catches for 506 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think we've learned that he's lucky he doesn't play for the Patriots with the lost fumbles.
Those fumbles, yeah.
But I would also, I think they're going to go a little bit more committee this year. And 1,000 yards is certainly a good year with the 6 touchdowns, but I'm going to go under by a touch. He'll be around the same, but I'm going to go under a touch just in an even out between him and Joik Bell. And so that means Reggie Bush goes under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under. He just got married, so he's getting weighed down. No, that's not the reason. He did just get married, but no, I'm going to go under as well. Pretty much all the same things you just said. Joik Bell, not much better, at least in the fumble category. He had 3 lost fumbles. 163 points, which is 10 per game, 216 PPR-wise, so he added another 53 points there. averaging out to 13.5 per game, 650 rushing yards, 8 rushing touchdowns. So he had more rushing touchdowns than Reggie. 1 2-point conversion, 3 lost fumbles, 53 catches, and 547 yards. No receiving touchdowns though.
Yeah, and you mentioned that he had more touchdowns than Reggie Bush did.
Rushing-wise, yeah.
Because I see him as more of the tough yardage, short yardage back, which means goal line back. So I believe in Joyke Bell, and I believe in him. I mentioned it earlier in the show that I would take him before Reggie Bush. Call me crazy, but that means, and me saying that they even out means that his numbers go up or Reggie Bush's go down. So I go over on Joyke Bell and under on Reggie Bush.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go over on Joyke Bell as well. I'm also a fan of him. And it's not that I would take him before Reggie Bush. It's just that I would let somebody else take Reggie Bush earlier on, and then I'd, be able to get Joyke Bell a little bit later and probably I think he's going to end up with more fantasy points than Reggie Bush this year, whether due to injury or what. I mean, Joyke Bell has only been, this is his third season on the, at least on Detroit. He's played in 16 games, both of those seasons. So you shouldn't necessarily have to worry about any health issues or anything like that. Just looking at Reggie Bush real quick, I don't know when the last time I saw him play a full season. Actually, he played a full season in 2012 in Miami. But other than that, the only other full year he's played was in 2006.
Right.
Last up, Adrian Peterson played in 14 games. Just this little guy called Adrian Peterson. 211 fantasy points, 15 per game. PPR, he went up to 240 with 17 per game, 1,266 yards, 10 touchdowns. Obviously, if somebody's scoring on the Vikings, it's probably Adrian Peterson. He still lost 3 fumbles, 29 catches, 171 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, well, fumbles lost. He doesn't have any worries about losing his job, so
yeah,
he doesn't have to worry about that. So he's another guy. I put him in the same category as Calvin Johnson, where he's going to have to prove to me that he goes under. So he's really consistent, somebody that you can really cornerstone your team with. So the 211 is about where he hangs out, or not even the 211. The 15 per game is about where he hangs out, if not better. So he's definitely an over until he proves he can do worse. Once you come back from an ACL injury and have the season that he had without missing time, then you're going to go ahead and get my trust forever. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. I mean, he played in one less game than Eddie Lacy and got, in standard leagues, 0.2 more points. So, nice. Yeah, he's just a monster. You can't, he's named all day for a reason. So, last up, we'll finish out with the tight ends, and then we'll try and wrap up with the mock drafts and quickly answer our one email question we have. Martellus Bennett on the Bears, 103 points, 6.49 per game. PPR, 168 points for 10.5 per game. 65 catches, 759 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a lost fumble.
Yeah, I'm going up with the touchdowns. I mentioned it quickly before in our sleeper spotlight. I think he's going up as a red zone target. He's a big guy, so catch some touchdowns and go over.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Martellus Bennett fan, but I got to think he's better than 100 points. I mean, I don't know where I see him going up, maybe yards and a couple more touchdowns. It's tough with all the targets Jay Cutler has. I mean, I think he just kind of gets lost in the field sometimes. He's got to compete with Brandon Marshall, Alshon Jeffrey, and even Matt Forte. So, I mean, I think he's the fourth look for the most part, for Cutler, especially with him looking to Marshall with 100 catches. But I do think they're going to continue to sling it around, and I do think he'll go over because I think he's better than 103 points.
Yeah.
All right, so that wraps up the NFC North. Let's get to our one question this week. Let's see if let's let Robot Bill check the mail. Hold on one sec.
Cool. Let's check the mail.
You've got mail.
All right, and we do have one email question this week, and you can send your questions to primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. Ryan has a question. He wants to know who he should keep. He's in a keeper league. You keep 2 guys, and you lose the pick where you drafted them, is what it is. So if you drafted a guy in the 7th round, you lose your 7th round pick to keep him. And it looks like free agents are worth an 8th round pick. So he has Kirk Cousins at 8, RG3 at 6, Terrell Pryor at 8, Eric Decker at 4, Harry Douglas at 8, Mike Wallace at 4, Emmanuel Sanders at 8, Randall Cobb at 2, Woodhead at 15, CJ Spiller at 7, Noshan at 15, which would have been good maybe a few months ago. Jimmy Graham at 1,
Yeah.
Shane Graham at 8, and then a couple. We won't count Shane Graham or the defenses. And by the way, this is a standard league, no PPR. Obviously, I'm going to say Spiller at 7 because even if he does not have a great season, 7 is a great value for him, even in a standard league. The second one's a little tougher. Maybe Woodhead at 15 because that's great value right there.
It's good value. I'll tell you right now, I'm taking Jimmy Graham at 1.
Yeah.
No matter where Jimmy Graham lies, I'm taking Jimmy Graham. So if you in a keeper league, I'm going to keep Jimmy Graham for as long as I possibly can, no matter how long he costs me a first-round pick. So I think that he puts up wide receiver numbers as a tight end, so I can definitely justify that, and I don't have to worry about my tight end position.
Yeah, I guess
and I have a huge advantage over everybody else at the tight end position.
That's true, and I guess it does depend on it depends where I'm picking in the first round there. If I'm picking top 5, I don't know if I want to spend. It also kind of depends who else is available. But if I'm first overall, I might want that first overall pick. Over Jimmy Graham. John thinks Emmanuel Sanders at 8 because of value. That could be a great value considering, he has Peyton Manning throwing it to him now, and not Big Ben.
Mm-hmm.
I
would absolutely agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
By John.
Yeah. I just don't know. That second keeper is a real tough situation. You can kind of pick your poison. Randall Cobb I love, but I don't love him at a 2. I think that's a little too early for him.
Yeah, Cobb is a little bit high at 2.
Yeah, so you could go Sanders at 8 just because, think of it this way. If you had Eric Decker at 8 last year, you're probably pretty happy.
Yeah, for sure. I would agree. And I mean, he kind of is playing the same role as Eric Decker. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about how they gel, how they've gelled together so far, or anything like that. But Peyton Manning makes everybody better, and if you can get an Eric Decker type with an 8, I think that's a good pickup to have, and you could get a real sleeper with Emmanuel Sanders as a third wide receiver.
Yeah, I think for me, if it were me, because it looks like 15 is the last round here, I think I'd still take Danny Woodhead. He didn't have a single rush over 10 yards, but getting him in the 15th round, I mean, he could be a guy. Ryan Matthews could get hurt. I know they have Donald Brown, but they seem to like Danny Woodhead, and he had 76 catches last year, and if this is a PPR, obviously, that raises his value by a ton, but 76 catches is a lot of catches. It's a lot of opportunities for him to do something with the football. So at a 15th round, I mean, you're not losing anything to keep him. You know what I mean? It's almost like only keeping one guy, but you're getting Danny Woodhead as a bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, that's usually where all the kickers and garbage sleepers go. So I mean, if you're taking Danny Woodhead as your sleeper potential, then that's certainly a good value to have there as well.
Yeah, so Ryan, I hope we helped answer your question. If you have a question or a suggestion, something you want to hear us talk about, or maybe you have a keeper question, send it to primetime at nextlevelradioonline.com. Let's quick wrap up with our mock breakdown, and we'll try and get through this a little quicker, I should say, than we probably should. But Steve, let's start out with yours. You did a 10-team PPR. You had the 8th pick. We both had the 8th pick. Both were in 10-team leagues. I did standard. Steve did PPR.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just mentioned that I'm going to take Jimmy Graham with a number 1 for Ryan. I took Jimmy Graham in a PPR in the first round. I'm going to go ahead and be solid with that. Jimmy Graham, like I said, puts up wide receiver numbers at the tight end position. So I'm perfectly fine with who I got there.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'd be happy with that for sure.
Yeah, I kind of got pigeonholed with the running backs. I've never done a PPR. My full disclosure here, I hadn't done a PPR, so I kind of got pigeonholed with Doug Martin. I got him in the 3rd round. I don't particularly like Doug Martin, but I was short on running backs, and he was the best available. And getting him in the third round, if he has a bounce back year, I'm perfectly okay with that. I thought I did well, I picked up Jeremy Maclin in the 8th. In a PPR with the way that the Eagles are going to throw it around, and
no Deshaun.
Yep, and no Deshaun Jackson. I got a number 1 receiver in the 8th round in a PPR league, and I got his tandem mate Nick Foles in the 7th round. So I don't mind having those two guys at all. And then I ended up with my boy Eric Ebron in the 14th round as my backup tight end. So I consider myself pretty well set at the tight end position.
Yeah,
as far as those go.
I see you have 3 quarterbacks, and I actually kind of like them. You got Foles in the 7th, Rivers in the 12th, which I think after the year he had last year, I'm surprised he went that late, especially getting Malcom Floyd back. And then Johnny Manziel in the 15th, which I like picking him up. I'm surprised nobody else had taken a shot on him.
Yeah, Johnny Manziel, I just kind of took a flyer and see where it goes. I mean, obviously he's not in the starting position right now, but the way that people are talking, the Browns, they start with a real gauntlet the first 3 weeks, and then they have a week 4 bye. So people might be screaming for Johnny Manziel, and they might be screaming for him early. So
I mean the only issue
I don't have a problem doing that.
The only issue you might end up running into, if this was your team, is you might hit that. You have 3 startable quarterbacks, halfway through the year, and you run yourself into that crazy thing of like, oh, who do I start? So you might end up being forced to trade one of them midway through the season. But I like every single one of them. So it looks like your starter, I guess, would be Foles at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I would definitely go with Nick Foles at this moment with the quarterback position.
So if this was a 3 wide receiver league, it would look like you have Andre Johnson, Michael Floyd from Arizona, and Jeremy Maclin, right?
Yep, absolutely. A little Andre Johnson has some holdout potential, but I'm not worried about that at this point. And he's a huge guy, especially in a PPR. He's a more than 100 catch guy. So,
right,
like I mentioned, it's cool to get 100 extra points.
Yeah,
in a PPR league.
And PPR, you can get away with receivers like those 3, and not saying they're bad receivers in any means, but if it was a standard league, I might be a little worried about having those 3, just those 3. I mean, you have Terrence Williams on Dallas, and he can be great for you too. But in a PPR, you can get away with that because, like you said, Jeremy Maclin, the Eagles are going to sling it, so, he's going to get catches. Michael Floyd had a great year last year, and Andre Johnson's Andre Johnson. So, running back-wise, it looks like you have Doug Martin and Monte Ball, which I like.
Yeah.
Doug Martin slid to the 3rd round.
Yeah, absolutely. So, he was bad last year. There's no 2 ways about it. He also got hurt, so if he has the bounce back year, also with the 3 quarterbacks, I might be able to have some trade bait for maybe a running back for a team that has extra running backs. So that would be obviously further down the line as the season progresses, but that's definitely something that I would look into.
Right.
As far as the running back situation goes.
Yeah, and then you got Jimmy Graham at tight end. Obviously, you can't go wrong there. And then if there were a flex position, I'm guessing you'd go Rashad Jennings in the flex, because looking at your other guys, you have Steven Jackson, Terrence Williams, and Ebron.
Yeah, exactly. So, like I said, the running back position might be a little bit thin. Rashad Jennings down at the flex would be my guy, which I don't mind too much. He might be able to catch some passes again with the PPR league and things like that. But he's also he'd be a solid running back with the Giants this year. So.
All right, cool. Any last wrap up words about your experience with this draft in particular? Because this was done on what website?
This is just Fantasy Football Calculator. So that was what I found. That had,
I was gonna say Yahoo,
PPR.
Yahoo and other sites do not do PPR.
Yeah, I was looking for something that gave me the opportunity to do PPR, so I was happy to do it.
Yeah. All right, so I guess we can move on to mine. Mine was done on Yahoo because it's a standard one, and like I said, Yahoo they do standard and they do auction. So in the first round, I was the 8th pick again, Marshawn Lynch in the first round at number 8. it's a tough situation. I passed on Demaryius Thomas, Monte Ball, Arian Foster. I mean, looking at who is there, I know Marshawn Lynch is getting up there, and there was even talk about him retiring after they won the Super Bowl. He's the Skittles guy. I mean, he's beast mode. I can't at 8. There's the potential for a top 5 running back right there at number 8.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have Marshawn Lynch in a keeper league, and I'm going to keep him until he proves me wrong. So I don't have any problem with you taking Marshawn Lynch. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of dropped value for almost, he did nothing on the field. All field talk is why he's dropped in value. Second round, I got AJ Green, which I'm happy with. Des Bryant had already gone. The only other guy I thought about taking was Brandon Marshall, but with Alshon Jeffrey there, I kind of decided to take the guy who is the one and only pretty much. I mean, he has other guys around him, but he's the man in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. Third round, I got Randall Cobb. Let me just run down. Yeah, and then fourth round, I got Andre Johnson. So I went on a bit of a tear for wide receivers. I got Lynch, and then I went 3 straight receivers, which in a standard league I think is important to get. Yeah. To get those guys like that, you want at least 2 really solid receivers in a standard league, in my opinion, because there are a ton out there, but I think this year we're going to have a bit of a drop off once you get to that second and third tier. I think it's going to drop off a little bit. Running backs, I think there's a lot of value in running backs later in drafts this year.
Sure, I would agree with that 100%, especially in a 3 wide receiver league.
Yeah,
like you're in this mock draft, so it's good to get 3 wide receivers because you're starting them all. So you get to roll with these guys every week. So you might as well go high on the wide receivers.
Yeah, exactly. Round 5, I took Cam. Round 6, I went with Matthews as my second running back. That's where I wasn't extremely happy with. But in the next round, I got Ben Tate. I actually would think about starting Ben Tate over Ryan Matthews, depending on how his first few games go. I'm actually shocked he made it to the 7th round. That's a really late. And who else got picked in the 7th round, who I actually wanted but got picked 2 spots ahead of me? Toby Gerhart.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was guessing, that he would come right around the same time as Ben Tate.
Yeah. 8th round, I got my tight end in Jason Witten. I mean, a guy that he's going to put up decent numbers for you. I'm not expecting a ton out of him. In my 9th round, my backup quarterback was still... the only reason I took him is because I was staring at Trent Richardson, Chris Johnson, and a bunch of receivers that I didn't want. Tom Brady was still there in the 9th round. So I kind of had to take him.
I mean, I'm looking at the other guys in this round as well, and the beauty of a mock draft...
Yeah.
is that you know what to keep the team, but Adam Vinatieri went right in front of you with Tom Brady.
Yeah, it might have been an auto draft thing with Yahoo.
Might have got better value than Corey did.
Yeah, Yahoo's a little iffy at times. Round 10, I ended up getting Reggie Wayne. Round 11, I got Ray Rice, and you know what? I see Ray Rice going late in a lot of mock drafts, and I'm really liking that because he's gonna get suspended, sure, but think of it this way. If he has a bounce back year and you get him in the 10th and 11th round, like you're drafting your backups anyway, why wouldn't you want him as one of your backups?
For sure. And I mean, it doesn't even, like you said, he's going to get suspended, but with your backups, you're not going to put them in until the bye weeks anyway. So I'm not sure. I don't think he's going to be out for too long, and you might be able to get some running backs that don't have their bye weeks until later, and you have Ray Rice fresh in the middle of the year, ready to go. Ready to prove something.
Exactly. And then, so after him, I got Kansas City defense in the 12th, DeAndre Hopkins in the 13th, Steve Smith in the 14th. I like him as a good bye week guy, especially in the 14th round. I think that's good value right there for him. If he's going that late, if he's there in the 14th round, I'll take him all day. And then I got my kicker, of course, in the 15th round. So looking at my starting roster, you'd have Cam, and if Cam's on a bye, you take Tom Brady as your starter. That's tough. That's a tough bye week quarterback. My 3 receivers would be AJ Green, Randall Cobb, and Andre Johnson. You got Marshawn Lynch, and I guess Ryan Matthews or Ben Tate, depending on who gets off to a better start. And then Witten for your tight end. And if I had to go flex, I guess Matthews or Tate, whoever wasn't starting as my running back, and possibly Ray Rice down the road somewhere. But yeah, I think. And maybe it's just the Yahoo draft, but I think there's a lot of value in the later rounds. And maybe, like I said, the other, we're going to have, and that's why we have a couple different websites that we're going to use, because every website's a little bit different. You see a lot of guys on Yahoo go on auto pick, and then it totally screws up everybody's draft.
Yeah, but with all that stuff and all those things aside, I love the value of Cam in the 5th, and I think DeAndre Hopkins can be legitimately a solid wide receiver, and you got him in the 13th. So you were talking about Steve Smith in the 14th. I like DeAndre Hopkins in the 13th. So
yeah, preseason,
some good value go.
Preseason, I might try to package like Tom Brady and Ben Tate maybe for somebody, or during the season when Tom Brady hopefully gets off to a good start, maybe try and trade him for another, a more solid number 2 running back than Ben Tate or Ryan Matthews. They're both guys who can put up points, and Ben Tate's kind of this unknown, at this point. We both like him, especially when Manziel plays, in case they do something like the read option or just the threat of Manziel running. But, I might try and, use some of those guys in the later rounds as trade bait for, a solid second running back. But, as you can see from both of these mocks, there are a lot of guys going later that we think you can get some value for.
For sure, absolutely, whether it's PPR or standard scoring.
Yeah, exactly. So that does it for this week's edition of Primetime Fantasy Football with the NFC North Spotlight. Next week, we're going to go NFC West. So we did AFC East and South, and we're going to basically flip the script and go NFC North and West, and then we'll flip it back over to the AFC. So we'll do NFC West. You got the I almost said Steelhawks, the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Rams, and the Cardinals. So that should be definitely interesting for me. A lot of question marks in that division. So definitely make sure you tune in next week for that.
Yeah, one of the best divisions in football competitive-wise.
Right.
So,
but not always necessarily fantasy-wise.
Fantasy-wise.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, Steve, thank you for taking time out of your vacation in the Poconos for coming on.
I know, it's exciting. I love doing this stuff. I consider this part of my vacation anyway. So more than happy to do it. All
right, well, make sure you check Steve out. What's the website again, Steve? Well, I guess you could just go to nextlevelradioonline.com and hit Steve's blog, and that takes you right to Steve's blog.
Exactly, for sure. And then the site that I actually work for is sportsnetworker.com. So check that out if you're looking to find a job in sports as well.
All right, cool. Make sure you listen to the showcast live on Next Level Radio, where you're listening right now, every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, make sure you tune in live. We have an interview with Kid and Kelsey Yorin from the new reality show called Way Out West on True TV, premiering next week. That should be an interesting interview. They're outfitters, so they're a little wacky out there in the West. Also, make sure you subscribe on iTunes to both Next Level Radio and Primetime Fantasy Football. Ben is putting his All Request Radio Rock on hold, so we'll have an update for you there. It might get moved to Mondays, but we'll keep you posted. Other than that, I think that's about it. Just remember to send your questions to Primetime at Next Level Radio Online and sign up for our free fantasy football league. If we get enough interest, we might actually even throw a prize out there. I don't know, other than having your pick of where you want to pick next year. So that does it. There's still plenty of room, like I said, on there. So send your name, email your name to primetime at nextlevelradioonline.com. That does it for us, though. That does it for you, Steve?
That does it for me as well.
Okay, excellent. Have a great week. We'll see you next Wednesday as usual. Take care.
See ya.
You know, ever since I turned pro in 1989.